Good morning, students. Let's take up loyalties, part 6. Today, we will discuss the theme of the play Loyalties, composed by John Galsworthy. Loyalties is perhaps one of the most interesting plays of Galsworthy. No other play of Galsworthy has been performed so frequently in England, America, and Germany. Mr. Scalet observes there have been many arguments over his work. And even today, perhaps no final verdict can be pronounced, but it is certainly not only the most brilliant of his plays, but that which best reveals all his merits and individuality as a dramatist, construction, conflict, climax, catastrophe, characteristic ironic treatment, humor in grave situations are all masterly. The theme of loyalties is not what it appears to be at the surface. It has been said that the plays of Galsworthy seems to take up one or the other detective problem. The main theme of the play is not the theft of the money and the loss which D. Lewis has to suffer, nor it is the detection of the theft. The theme of the play is, in fact, a social and a philosophical theme. Galsworthy deals with the abstract laws that operate in society in several of his plays. In The Silver Box, he deals with the problem of the practical application of justice. In Strife, he deals with the problem of capital versus labor. In Justice, he deals with the problem of not only the application of justice but also the problem of the prison houses. In Loyalties, he deals with certain abstract ideas and notions that govern and guide the action and behavior of most of people in our society. The real of these loyalties is the class of the various loyalties as exemplified by the various characters in the play. Some of these loyalties are represented by the various characters in the play, which might be noted like first, Dancy, representing loyalty of his own conception of a manly life. D. Lewis, representing loyalty to his race, that is, Jews. Charles Windsor, representing loyalty to his class. Then General Canning, representing loyalty to his class, traditional approach towards problems and things. Twiston, representing loyalty to his professional ethics. These different kinds of loyalties are, in a way, class or group loyalties. Mr. R. H. Coates rightly observes the theme of loyalties is the conflict of various forms of caste feelings with one another. Captain Dancy, Ferdinand D. Lewis, Charles Windsor, Lady Adela, Twisden, and Saint Earth are all, in a way, representatives of the respective classes which they happen to belong to. Each of them thinks that the best he can do is to hold up the professional loyalty of his group, club, or nation or society. The play represents the clash between these different kinds of loyalties. Most of these loyalties clash against each other, and we feel more often shame not that such a clash could have been avoided. Only once or twice are we convinced about the validity of such a clash. Otherwise, we feel that of the cases, it would have been better for the characters in the play not to attempt to hold up their narrower ideals and loyalties. We are, of course, convinced that what Mr. Twiston does is perfectly justified. Had Twiston proceeded with the case, it would have been certainly an insult to the legal professional ethical code which expects him to give the case up even when it has not been finalized. We are equally convinced about the action taken by the police inspector because his loyalty to law and to the orders of his superiors decide, decided beyond dispute. That is, his loyalty towards his profession is beyond dispute. But what do we feel about the narrow ideals and loyalties of people like Charles Windsor, Captain Dancy, and Lord St. Earth? Probably this that they should not have continued to believe in their narrow ideals to the extent to which they actually do. The theme of loyalties was perhaps suggested to Goldsworthy by the saying, patriotism is not enough. What Goldsworthy seems to be doing in this play is to show that life is a very complex phenomenon and that it is wrong to interpret it in terms of narrow ideals and loyalties. It is not enough, we are frankly told towards the end of the play. There is, of course, some sense in believing in the larger and more valuable loyalties of life. But to confine these large principles of life to narrow circles is nothing very useful, and the result of doing such a thing will be cutting each other's throats with the best of our motives, as Goldsworthy might have put it. A close examination of the theme of loyalty would amply illustrate that the time for narrow ideals and limited loyalties has disappeared. If we could give the theme of the present play a kind of political turn, we can also say that it is belief in our narrow ideals and loyalties that has made the world a hell instead of a heaven. Some of us are loyal to capitalism, some of us are loyal to communism, but only a few of us are loyal to what is right to the humanity at large. Together, with theme of these clashing loyalties on an internal plane runs the theme of caste prejudice, the Britisher versus the Jews. What this class prejudice has done to the world is too well known to be repeated. This caste prejudice, in one form or the other, is main weakness of our own social structure. America has very recently produced an example of the depth to which this fanaticism can go, and it has been able to produce an example at a very high cost. The problem is amply illustrated, sometimes directly and sometimes indirectly, in the present day. T. Lewis is disliked by even as nice a gentleman as Charles Windsor, and the butler makes no bones about the fact that he prefers his own countrymen to Jews. Galsworthy was very much against such prejudices, and he might have repeated the words of the American President Abraham Lincoln that goes like this, with charity to all and malice to none. with charity to all and malice to none. Great words of Abraham Lincoln. That these caste and race prejudices do not held up much is confirmed towards the end of the play, Margaret tells us. We have all done that. We have all done that. It is not enough. That simply means we stuck ourselves to the caste or the race prejudices, but they are not enough. Means our racial prejudices could not save the life of Dancy. Means we have to rise above all these racial prejudices and we must think about humanity at large. We should not consider ourselves as Hindus or Muslims or Sikhs or Christians, rather, and also not as Indians or Britishers or Americans or Russians or Japanese. Rather, we must think as citizens of the world, as human beings. Humanity must be our religion. We must have large heart. We must admit and accept and embrace all the human beings, irrespective of their religion, caste, or race. That is what John Goldsworthy wants to convey through this play, Loyalties. That these loyalties and prejudices and problems form a very large portion of the problems that seem to be facing the world at the present moment. One hopes that we would sooner or later realize that it is not enough. A time has come when we must revolutionize our entire thinking and when the social mind must be diverted to think in a different manner altogether. Although Loyalties by Goldsworthy consciously seeks to present no moral before us, this is something which it implies and indirectly suggests. Dear students, here Goldsworthy raises the problem of racial prejudice, of social problem, and it does not suggest us any kind of solution. The solution is left to the readers. Since we all people are sensible enough, we are given the problem, we are plunged into the water to swim across the banks of the river. Now we have to find out the solution to this problem. What is the real loyalty and how we take this loyalty, how we disguise this loyalty as prejudice in the name of religion, in the name of race, caste, or region. So we must come out of this taboo. We must come out of this cell and we must develop free thinking, a humanitarian attitude. We must not stick to the narrow mindedness that you are Indian, I am British, she is Australian, that fellow is American. That's why we love our own people. Own people means if you are Indian, you must love Indians. No. Take for example, we all watch cricket matches, but being narrow minded, we appreciate Indian players and we criticize the foreign players. Even though they play well, they play better than the Indians. but we criticize them. We don't like them simply because we are the victim of narrow-mindedness. We are slave to narrow-mindedness. That narrow-mindedness has overpowered us. That has overshadowed our intellect, overshadowed our rationalism, overshadowed our that humane attitude. That's why we can't think, we can't rise above that narrow mindedness. But through this play, Loyalties, John Goldsworthy wishes to convey that humanity must be our religion, entire world must be our reason, and love for humanity must be our ideology. That's all. Have a nice day. Thank you very much.